Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan. Adam, this is going to be, in my estimation, a very, very insightful and enlightening podcast almost to the level of our one in the combine and free agency of the last few weeks, because this has been an interesting week for Eagles with the developing situation that we have with the statement about Jason Peters and some of the things you've heard about Andre Dillard. When I say you, I'm talking about our listeners, right? And so you and I spent a lot of time in the past few days making sure we kind of crossed our T's, dotted our I's, went back to certain sources, gathered information. And so, not to say that we have everything in the world, but I think that when we address the situations around both Jason Peters and Andre Dillard, we're going to leave everybody with a little bit of a clearer picture as to what's going on. Because the one thing, and I'm sure you've sensed it too in questions and comments to us, people aren't really sure what's going on right now between whether they're keeping Jason, moving on to Dillard, what's going on, what's with the trade block, and yada, yada, yada. So I think we're going to do a pretty decent job in this podcast of at least giving people a foundation from which to start with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, we hinted to our listeners a while back that there was some sentiment to bring Peters back,
right?
Which really was never the discussion when the season started. If you remember, he had a contract restructure. They basically cut it down to 1 year. Jason took a pay cut, and it was assumed, and rightfully so, that 2019 would be his last season. Then when I heard around Thanksgiving, maybe a little bit past that he might be coming back, I'm like, this just doesn't make any sense to me. And we'll explain why.
Right.
It's under consideration. But Geoff, if you look at this statement left the door for him to come open. But you know as well as I do, when players they test free agency, more often than not they don't come back. That's just the way it is.
That is correct. We will kind of get into that statement, get into Peters' intentions, and get into some of the things we've learned about Dillard. First, before we even get into all that, I want to thank everybody who has come and checked out InsideTheBirds.com. We launched it last week, and the people who helped us who created the website for us, phenomenal people at the Philadelphia Media Lab. I spoke to them the other day, Adam, and what they said was they've built, umpteen websites, and they've never seen as many eyes on a website in 1 week as we got.
Wow.
So
awesome.
And that's just a testament to our fans, our listeners, and the people who logged on and subscribed. So again, if you haven't checked out InsideTheBirds.com yet, please do. Adam's written great stuff. Andrew DeCecco's written great stuff on draft prospects. I've tried to write a few things here and there. It's doing well, and we really appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe. We're not going to inundate your mailbox, but it's a great way to keep in touch with what's going on with Inside the Birds, and a great way for us to inform our listeners of things like our upcoming NFL draft for April 23rd watch party at Frankfurt Hall in Germantown. We're excited about that. We announced that last week. We'll continue to give out more information, but it's a great place. It's a beer garden on Frankfurt Ave in Fishtown. Frankfurt Hall is a wonderful spot. I've been there a couple of times. If you like craft beer and you like the NFL draft and you like Inside the Birds, it's probably going to be an amazing event. And at some point, when we're ready, we'll reveal who our special guest is going to be. So I want to thank everybody involved with that. And then also want to welcome, Adam, our sponsors, DraftKings. We have secured a year-long sponsorship with DraftKings. So again, testament to our great listeners who make this podcast attractive for advertisers. And we want to thank DraftKings and let you know that for a limited time, all new DraftKings Sportsbook app users can get a sign-up bonus up to $1,000 by using the code ITB. $1,000, man. That's a pretty good sign-up bonus. So you got to be 21 or over, and it's only in Pennsylvania. It's in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. The bonus is comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so let's get into this. Let's start with Jason Peters, Adam, because the biggest confusion people had, or I'm going to say this, it's me. I was the one who was surprised by other people's reaction. They basically put out a statement saying both sides have agreed that Jason will test the free agent market, and then after that, they might be resuming talks to see if they can work something out. But immediately, Adam, some people, both fans, reporters even, assume that was just their way of saying goodbye. And I don't, while anything is on the table here, I certainly did not read that as you're gone. Thank you for your service. Goodbye.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Look, they could have done that. They could have done what a lot of teams do, is take the goodbye part. Thank for his service. You saw Lane Johnson's awesome tweet. Mm-hmm. That was really nice. But they didn't. They left the door open for him to come back. And I just think that with Peters, while he certainly was not didn't play at a high level, he played at more of a better than serviceable level where you could win with him. And they know he's got something left at 38 years old. I just get the feeling, Geoff, that as the season went along, Jason, they could see he could still play. He does tend to get hurt with minor injuries. But then there was the Andre Dillard stuff, which we'll get into in a minute. Mm-hmm. And when you kind of mix it all in, that's why they haven't said goodbye totally yet. And by the way, how about the head coach, Doug Peterson, at the Combine? You and I were there. I mean, he said he'd love to have him back. He really wants him back, and he used the Darren Sproles example.
Yeah, and last year he did the same thing. He said, yes, I want Darren Sproles back. And guess what? Darren Sproles came back, and he had the same kind of enthusiasm to say he wanted Jason Peters back. So I guess the question is, and what we're facing here, Adam, is the value of Jason Peters. You're right. He does not play at a Hall of Fame level anymore. But compared to the horrific play of left tackles, right tackles, overall offensive linemen in the NFL, he really is still one of the better ones. And I had someone in personnel, high-ranking personnel, tell me they feel that on the free agent market that Jason could probably get a contract with incentives that would equal, if he reaches all the incentives, about $10 million.
I was going to guess 10. It's funny you say that. Jason only made $6 million last season. When I say only, they cut his pay. Right. They cut it down pretty big, and he wanted to be back, so he had to agree to it. The Peter situation. We know about the owner's relationship with him. It's really interesting situation when Jason brought up, I don't know, 2 years ago that he and Jeffrey Lurie are close. One thing I've learned about the owner, he's a little bit more involved than I thought. When you and I and Bill Osborne first started our show, I put it out there that Jeffrey's involved with a lot more transactions than people understand or they'd like people to know about. Look, he's signing the checks and he can do that. He also he's owned the team since 1994, and it's his right to do that. And he had the big trade. Many obviously a long time ago, and maybe the best transaction in terms of trade in Eagles history, other than the Ron Jaworski acquisition. But I would say Peters is even bigger.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, Geoff, if they were completely sold that Andre Dillard was ready, we wouldn't be talking about even a crack in a window to be open for Jason Peters to come back.
I agree. And that's why when I look at that statement that they put out at him, and some people just assume that was just a very nice way of saying goodbye. We're going to allow you to test free agency. We don't really have interest in bringing you back, but we don't want to say it. I wrote this on InsideTheBirds.com earlier in the week. Plenty of players, even better than Jason Peters, Hall of Famers in the past, have been moved on from by their team. We're talking about Jerry Rice. We're talking about Emmitt Smith. We're talking about Tim Brown, maybe even obviously Joe Montana. If the Eagles really were just cutting the cord, they could have released a statement saying, we thank you for all you've done. We look forward to the day you return to get your jersey retired and be in the Eagles Wall of Fame. They didn't. And they carefully chose their words to leave the door ajar and say, let's see what you get on the market. And there's a potential we can bring you back. Now, you and I, that's the reporting that we do. I don't think you and I believe he should be back. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know I've said many times, you got to cut the cord. Yeah, you have to cut the cord. I understand that Dillard or Mailata or anybody that you sign as a veteran is not going to be as good as Jason Peters. But we see this all the time. You mentioned, I think, the Seahawks last podcast. They broke up the Legion of Doom. All those guys could still play. Richard Sherman just went to the Super Bowl. He was an All-Pro. Earl Thomas, after he got hurt, came back and played well. But you have to build your team for the future while trying to win in the present.
Yeah, and that's something, and it's funny, and a little nugget on with Jeffrey Lurie. I know from behind the scenes over the last, 3 or 4 years, he's really implored the front office to make sure they put together a younger roster. And boy, Howie Roseman at the combine basically said so. That's what his mantra is. They want to get younger, and Howie did say, and I appreciate his willingness to talk about it. I guess it was at the one in January after they lost. He and Peterson had the one and talk about the coaches and all that, where he said Howie's had a problem walking away from older players. Mm-hmm. So that's you got to do it. Here's where I'm at to answer your question. I'm siding with you. I would just move away from Peters, and he's 38. You got to know what you have in Andre Dillard. I get we'll get to him in a second, but with Jason Peters, you got to eventually move on.
Mm-hmm.
If you and I were running the team, I would say to Geoff, why are we bringing him back? Like, why would we even consider bringing him back? We drafted this kid in the first round. Why are we bringing Jason Peters? Why are we even leaving the door for him to come back? What sense does that make? You can't have your first round picks to 2 years.
Right. I mean, eventually you just get. You brought it up best, and you may have hit the nail on the head when you say, I don't know how you're Howie Roseman, and you stand before the podium and say we need to get younger, more dynamic, and move this roster along, and then bring back a 38-year-old left tackle, no matter how well he's playing. The second part of that, Adam, is just the fact that I want to say it was around Thanksgiving. You expressed sometime around then that you were hearing the team wanted him back. To me, Adam, that suggests, because some people are speculating this, and I understand why they're doing it, but I think that they're wrong. They're speculating that this is clearly an ownership, sentimental.
No,
the owner and the left tackle are close, and the owner says he wants the guy back because he loves him and he wants him back, and that's going to happen. If you were reporting this around Thanksgiving, that to me suggests that coaches, general manager, perhaps executive, the people involved in seeing this team on a day-to-day basis weren't sold themselves that they wanted to move on.
Yeah, sorry. So let me get into this real quick, and then we can move on to Dillard. So what happened, folks, is I texted Geoff. I said, you're not going to believe this, but I think Peters might be coming back. And I said, I'm not saying it's right. I really need to check into this. But someone I don't think I've talked to in a long time said something to me. And when this person speaks, I need to check it out, see if it's true. And it turned out to be true. He was in consideration to come back. We're talking about Peters. Like, all right, well, we'll see how it goes the rest of the season. And then when Doug Peterson, right 10 feet in front of me, said he wants Peters back, I was like, I was sort of like kind of surprised. I didn't expect him to say that. I get it. It's not his call. It's Roseman's call. Mm-hmm. He has personnel control. But Doug certainly gets input. I'm to the point where there's things. I'm with you, though. I move away. I take a deep breath and say, you know what, guys? We have to look at Andre. We trust Jeff Stoutland. We know how athletic Andre is, and we understand a couple things we're going to talk about in a second. Mm-hmm. There's some challenges with Andre. Our friend Ruben Frank from NBC Sports Philadelphia wrote a fair piece on him.
Yes.
It's what Geoff and I have been talking about probably for 3 or 4 months on Andre Dillard. I think Ruben wrote a very fair piece about should people be concerned with a question mark with Dillard, and I think, by golly, we're probably going to talk about that.
Yeah, we are. And to finish the book here on Jason Peters, I want to make sure we are unequivocal. We are not reporting that he's definitely coming back, just like we're not reporting that he's definitely leaving in free agency. What we're saying is the door is definitely open. Don't assume that statement was a definite goodbye. And obviously, it really is, for once in life. For once with the Eagles, you don't have to kind of read between the tea leaves. We'll see what he gets. We'll see what he gets on the free agent market. If he gets a $10 million deal, I can't see him. Not a fan. If Howie's about to spend $17 million on a corner, it's going to be tough to bring back a 38-year-old left tackle at $10 million.
Oh, so what I would add on that, remember when we reported on our show that despite what's out there, Tim Jernigan and the Eagles have interest in bringing him back.
Yes,
and they did that.
Great example.
Right.
Great example.
Exactly. Look, and by the way, I would agree with your assessment. Peters on the open market should be able to find one team that's going to pay him $10 million.
Yeah.
Which you would think theoretically the Eagles aren't going to want to pay.
Right. I would think 2 teams that come to mind, and this is just speculation where I've run it by other people in the league and they say that would make sense, are the Jets and the Bears. Teams that could use offensive line help and have some money to spend.
It won't be the Bears unless they're going to get rid of Charles, not Jay Leno, their left tackle. Yeah,
they couldn't move him to right tackle because I don't think he's a great athlete. Leno.
He's fine. He's fine.
Okay.
The Jets, Kelvin Beachum, the Jets left tackle, his contract's up. Cleveland.
Oh, that's true. Cleveland's a good shot.
Well, their offensive line is a joke. They've got 3 openings or 3 bet. Look, they don't have a left tackle. Greg Robinson will not be re-signed under any circumstance.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, well, yeah. He's got to hide his stash a little better, but
yeah. By the way, Andrew Berry there. You see the connection from trying to bring somebody over.
Yeah. Look, they need a left tackle. The right tackle's shaky. The right guard is shaky. So they need to rebuild their offensive line. Treader's great, and Batoni is really good, but they need to rebuild their line. And the Jets, I'm told by multiple sources, are going to spend heavy in free agency on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Beacham's up. Alex Lewis, their left guard, I'm told they want him back. They don't have a center. Jonathan Harrison, though, did a decent job. Mm-hmm. And Brandon Shaw, the right tackle's up, so they got to rebuild their offensive line. You know,
how about the Vikings? They're a team that's always tried to upgrade that line. No, he as a group, he's his best right now as a run blocker. He can still run block with the best of them. And you were thinking that wide zone. Go ahead.
Yeah, here's the problem. Remember, I think you and I discussed sometime in the last year about Peters moving to guard. Uh-huh. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think he ever took any reps at guard. Riley Reif is just an average left tackle. So they had interest, by the way, last year in the guy that signed with the Packers. Name escapes me. I'll know about Velder. I know the Packers the Vikings before Velder signed with it. Remember when he went to the Patriots and then retired, then came out of retirement to play for the Packers? I know the Vikings had interest in bringing him a year ago or so, but it just didn't work out. But look, getting back to Peters before we get to Dillard, Peters is going to have an opportunity to play for another team. I would say the chances are a lot better he's going to be playing somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But again, the Eagles did leave the door open, and it always comes down to money.
All right, let's move on to Andre Dillard so we can help clear up some misperceptions about him. You and I reported probably right after the draft that when he was drafted, he was just a beautifully natural pass protector who needed to get stronger. I think we were pretty bullish on the fact that because he came from a program that throws the ball all the time with Mike Leach, that he doesn't get into a 3-point stance, and he also needs to get bigger, stronger, more powerful. And we noted that a lot of offensive linemen do. I think a year later, we now also know that the kind of the nastiness and the mean streak that you look for in an offensive lineman is not something that comes natural to him. And it may never come natural to him. And a year into his career, I think it's fair to say that the Eagles look at him and want him to develop that part of his game, because as we've seen when he had to play left tackle, he still does pass protect very well, but that's only part of the game. And obviously taking to your coaching, and Stoutland could get on you, and getting out there and being a mauler is the hallmark of the great offensive lineman. And that's right now where he's far from. That would be a fair assessment.
Right. He'll never be a mauler because he doesn't play like that. Peters did. Peters was incredibly graceful for a big guy.
Right.
Dillard, what personal people say, he's got elite feet. It's just really the thing that blew me away was I think I just got home from my training camp tour, and I was able to see him a couple days in training camp. I think I actually had a break. I remember I was home for 2 days, and I could not believe how graceful the kid was. I'm like, boy, looks like they're going to get this right. And he also looked good. Yeah. Talking to people who've been in training camp every day, he looked really good.
Dancing bear, as Jones would say.
Right, exactly. The term for a great left tackle is he's a dancing bear. Greg Cosell used to call Jonathan Ogden that, who was a massive human being, but he had great feet. So it looked like he got his hand usage better, because I was told that was an issue with him when the OTAs were not good for him. Training camp was spectacular. Looked like they're on the right track. He was exactly who they thought he was. They nailed this one. Mm-hmm. There's your left tackle. He won't play this year because Peters under contract, and this is good. Andre could learn more, right? Build up his body a little bit. Obviously, this offseason's big for him, but I think, Jeff, you're on the right track here. The total package of this player is one that's in question. It's you talk about the strength and the 1-2, and do you have the drive to be a dominant player? That's a little bit in question. And then in Ruben Frank's piece, he brought up when Andre's asked to play right tackle and he got benched at halftime, and his attitude was just not great, Jeff. I mean, you look at how many players extended their contracts or extended their careers here at changing positions.
Right. No, I agree with you. There are a lot of guys who've had to move around, and even Big V, for as much as we've knocked him as not being the toughest, not being the most athletic guy. I mean, you throw him in at any position, Isaac Seumalo, another guy who struggled earlier in his career, but he did play. He was an extra offensive tackle as a rookie. He would tackle eligible, in the third team personnel.
Okay, no, with Isaac Seumalo, it was probably our first or second show we ever did. And did we do shows in 2018? Do we start in the summer? Okay. I'd put out there that Isaac was having trouble with confidence in his first 2 years, but the light went on, and he's going to turn out to be a really good player for them, and that's what happened. He's not quite a Pro Bowler, but he's just under that. He's a solid football player. His was not about strength. His was confidence. It had nothing to do with functional strength. He's a massive guy, and he got it together. The third year, he broke out in 2018, and now he's a really good. That turned out to be a great pick for them.
Right.
But Dillard,
it's similar. Dillard could put on more muscle, and maybe
he has to. Now he has to get stronger.
But it's the attitude also. It's the confidence that you're talking about.
It's folks. This is an attitude thing with him. He's not a bad kid. He's a California kid. That area. He's just got to get a little bit more nasty. Now the question is, Geoff, you've covered this league for a long time. Can an offensive lineman acquire that trait?
Well, again, Seumalo is an interesting guy. If you watched him after his rookie year, you would have thought he's just not a guy who plays with tremendous confidence, but then the light came on for him. I think the light needs to come on for him, but I want to read to you, Adam, a write-up that I got from a league personnel guy about Dillard that maybe can put some other things into perspective about him. Because you remember, when they traded up to draft him last year, the big positive was that they got the best offensive tackle in the draft.
That's right.
And that this was going to be the future replacement for Jason Peters. So this comes from a guy who is a high-ranking personnel guy in the AFC. He's not a GM, but he's a very high-ranking personnel guy. All right. And I asked him what he thought a year later, what he remembers about Andre Dillard and scouting him. And he said he met with him, he scouted, interviewed, everything. And he wrote, liked him. Future starting left tackle, went to a great spot, will always struggle versus power guys, but super athletic. And then he added, great kid, soft-spoken, great teammate, not glass eater. And then, Adam, there was one more sentence.
What is that? A glass eater being tough?
A glass eater, like tough. Someone who eats glass is tough.
Yeah.
Can you imagine eating glass? All the blood that would become? Yeah.
No.
Evan Mathis is a glass eater, right? Jason Peters is a glass eater.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the addition, though, that I think really puts things into perspective. He's nowhere close to the top OTs in this year's class.
Really?
Now, let's go back a year ago. And this is what the draft is really good at. It almost mind screws people, including reporters, us too, right? The Eagles trade up to get him, and every scout says, hey, he was the number one ranked OT in the class. They got themselves the best OT in the class. What isn't really said about that time is that last year's OT class was not very good. In fact, I think a lot of the guys who went in the first round are even right tackles, not even left tackles. Right? If we go back, I mean, the Atlanta Falcons drafted the kid from Washington whose name escapes me right now, Colby McSomething, right? You're going to make me look it up?
Sure. Wait, who do you talk about?
The Falcons. They drafted a guard from Boston College named Lindblom, and then they drafted a tackle from, I think,
Caleb. Caleb McGarry. You're right.
Now,
Caleb
if I'm not
McGarry.
mistaken, he was a right tackle for them, correct?
Yes, and Jake Matthews is their left, and Lindstrom is a guard, correct?
Correct. So who else went in did Cody Ford go in the first round of Buffalo?
Second round of Buffalo.
Second round. He was considered first round talent, but he went in the second round, and he also was just a right tackle. So when you start to look as a small school, Alabama State, and he wound up playing, he went right after Andre Dillard.
Titus Howard.
Titus Howard. He played left guard all year, if I'm not mistaken.
No. Titus Howard played right tackle. He played right tackle.
I'm sorry, right side. Didn't he start at left guard?
I don't think so. No, because remember he did so. He did. The thing that I could not understand what Houston did. Think about this is crazy. Think about how quickly. I'm glad you brought this up. Think about how quickly Bill O'Brien, who had personnel control even last year, gave up on Titus Howard as their left tackle.
Yeah, think about traded for Laramie Tunsil, and then
it's ridiculous. Think about how stupid that is. That's a cute.
A year ago at the time, it's a draft, and we're saying, hey, they got the best offensive tackle in the draft. A year later, you see the guys who are going to go in the Mekhi Bectons of the world, right? Yeah. This guy's running a 5'01", 40, 360 pounds. You see some of the other offensive tackle prospects, and you realize, you know what? Dillard has a chance to be a good left tackle, but the fact that if anybody thought he was going to be Jason Peters or this mauler Well, that he's got a long way to go, and he may never really reach that potential. So now you can understand a little bit better why the Eagles may be second-guessing their idea of going straight to Dillard.
I'm going to disagree. I think it's more he's got elite feet, man. This kid is I know what the tape looked like last year because just talking to people who were grading it, he was spectacular. In some practices, they're oh my God, he's exactly what we thought he would be. I think it's more what you were saying. I think it's the whole package with this kid. It's the functional strength. He's got to get stronger. There's no doubt.
Right.
From a technique standpoint, he's got to get better. And then the attitude has just got to be, hey man, it's my job. I want it. Let's go. I don't know if he's there yet with that. It's hard to go into exact. It's a sort of nebulous situation with Andre Dillard. It was not a secret that he was not, the guy you're going to throw down in an alley. He's going to kick everyone's ass. That's not who he is.
Right.
He's an elite athlete for the left tackle position. You love watching his tape, and you just the total package is what you ask yourself: is he going to get there? When will he get there? Right. Is it going to be year 2, by the way? Where we are right now as we fast forward this. Yep. Now, let me ask you this question. We're going to assume for argument's sake that Peters is going somewhere else, right? Dillard obviously would be the starter.
We'll see, yeah.
Okay, well, do they bring someone in to compete against him, or they just bring a journeyman in to be the swing tackle?
Well, I know that, when we did our free agency preview on offense and we went through every position, we said that in the likely event that Jason Peters leaves and Andre Dillard takes over as left tackle, that even from a backup standpoint, they didn't really have a natural backup left tackle. And we started looking at some of the Rashad Hills of the world who are going to be free agents at OT. I think the Eagles are going to have to sign a veteran tackle, probably to a 1-year deal if they lose Jason Peters. No doubt about it.
All right. So to add to that, we had reported last week, Jordan Mailata did not have surgery to repair the disc issue,
which is really big.
Right. So I put it out on, I know it was last week. So anyway, I'll probably put that in written form when I do Eagles notes this coming week. But with Mailata, the question is, is he going to be the swing tackle? Is he just going to be a right tackle? I don't know because Geoff, he's never played an NFL regular season game. Right?
You just got to hope that he turns out to be excellent. But you have to sign a veteran on at least a 1-year deal.
Now, I would love it, and I know I talked to Jared Veldier's agent, Ken Sarnoff, at the Combine very briefly. I said, "Hey, does he want to play?" And Ken confirmed he absolutely wants to play. Mm-hmm. He's by far the best swing tackle out there. The problem is, I know he wants to still start. So if he can't find a starting job, if I'm the Eagles, I give this guy I give him low end starter money, and I let him be the top backup tackle. He's played right and left tackle, by the way, in his career.
Yes.
He would be a great one.
No, he's had some injuries earlier in his career, correct? But he's kind of bounced back.
He's fine. Yeah, he's fine.
He was with Oakland, I want to say.
Velder, yes, you're correct. He was with the Raiders to start, and then he went to the Cardinals, I think.
Right.
Marshall Newhouse. I know he's a good. Here's what Marshall Newhouse is.
Oh God.
No, but let me. Marshall Newhouse has played guard. He's a backup tackle. Yeah. Do you want him starting 17 games? No.
No, that's why the Patriots weren't very good this year because he had to start.
But you need someone who's done it as a swing tackle.
Yeah.
By the way, Dennis Kelly's contract's up.
Hey, that would be a really good swing tackle.
But he's not the athlete the Eagles like.
That's true. He probably could only play your right tackle. I don't know if you'd want him at left tackle. You're right that Newhouse has the least enough athleticism to get you by at left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's
never ideal. We know that.
Exactly. Yeah. What you stole my line. It's never going to be ideal with a lot of these guys. Mm-hmm. Jermaine Ifedi was he's a former first-round pick who did not have a great year. Brandon Shell's out there. DeMar Dotson, the left tackle for the right tackle for the Bucks may retire. He hasn't decided whether he's going to play or not. Mm-hmm. Conklin's going to get a monster deal. Balaga, forget you're not. They're just not that. Chris Clark, I got a guy that I like. He could play left or right tackle he's been a backup for most of his career. Spot starter for the Texans. Jamarcus Webb is too much of a journeyman for me. I would probably bring him in. But you mentioned Rashad Hills, more of a right tackle than a left. Eric Flowers is out there. You'd rather not do that, but he can do it.
It's not a pretty list, folks.
No, it's not.
That's the bottom line.
Correct.
That is why Big V, who is, in my opinion, best as a backup swing tackle, is going to get a starting job, going to get probably, 10 to 11 million a year?
I would say in the neighborhood of $10 million a year. Where he's good. I'm told by multiple sources that he's going to be playing right tackle.
There was a guard for the Packers, Adam. The Packers signed a guard last year for an $8 million APY, and he was really nobody.
Oh, Billy Turner. Actually,
Billy Turner. That's the name that was told to me. Yeah. So someone said to me from a league source said, if Billy Turner can make $8 million APY, that's probably something that Big V can expect from somebody somewhere.
Well, and plus the thing that he's got positional versatility, right or left tackle and guard. I know he had some snaps at guard. Right. He's really not a guard. He's too big. He's better at tackle. Yeah. But the Eagles are in a little bit of a bind here. Matt Pryor definitely showed some promise when he got thrown in there because he had to. As guard after. Yeah, but he doesn't really quite know what he's doing yet. He's very raw, but he's got ability. They're going to have to go get a swing tackle as we it's the most we've ever talked about tackle ever on the show, by the way.
I know, but it's important given what's happened this week. And I want to go back to one thing because I think it's really it really emphasizes the point you made, right? And Ruben referred to it too in his article on CSN Philly. It wasn't just that Andre Dillard before that game where he had to play right tackle kind of tried to say how difficult it was. It's like writing an essay with your left hand if you're right-handed. It was also that when he went into the game, against all odds, he really wilted and folded. I mean, some people have to play out of position, and they just fight and scrap and do whatever they got to do to try to get by. They had to yank Dillard at halftime of that game because he just wasn't up for the fight. And that was probably as disappointing as just him saying that it was hard to do it to the media, which you want your offensive lineman to just be like, I'll do it. I'll handle it.
Exactly. And by the way, offensive linemen are some of the best guys on the team. They're almost always willing to do whatever the coach wants. It's just whatever Statler wants, they do it. He has to have a better attitude. So, you can't just be an athlete. You got to want it. You got to do what the coaches want. And this is a major offseason for this player, number 77 in his second year.
Yeah. I'll say as an example, watch Jason Kelce when he has to go play a Pro Bowl level nose tackle from a 3-4 team who weighs about 340 pounds. Jason will get put on skates. Jason will look, he'll get beat, but he doesn't go down without a fight. He gives it everything he's got when he's overmatched, but sometimes he just loses. In this case, you just saw Dillard not even really try as hard as he could.
And by the way, that the point you just made is, before we move on here, it's actually really important for people to understand. Talking to coaches and personnel people, one of the things that older players do, and Peters is a great example of this, unbelievably great at knowing what his limitations are. You have to manipulate your hands a certain way because your reflexes don't let you move as well as you'd like to. Mm-hmm. So what you do, you might strike the guy differently. You might use your hands differently because your feet can't get you there. So Dillard, you just talked about it. You know what? Figure it out, man. Just accept it. It's not easy. It's a different mindset, but you got the greatest coach in the world, and Stoutland. He's going to get you through it. Trust him, because the other players sure do.
Yeah, and I would like to see Brandon Graham maybe put his arm around him and say, "Hey, man, I was once like you, a first-round pick that traded up for, got hurt a little bit my rookie year. Then I just didn't have it. It took me a while to come back. I was the fan. The fans killed me, but look at me now. There's a shot for you. You just got to you got to dedicate yourself. You got to hit the weight room. You got to have confidence in yourself, and then you can be like me. So that would be nice. Brandon's a good example of a guy who people gave up on early.
Oh, he made it one of the most. I would have to say, if we were grading players around the league over our time covering the league,
right? I
would say top 2 or 3 turnarounds I've ever seen. He was, Jeff, in my reporting after I'm going to say in 11, he was struggling. It wasn't just that he had an ACL injury early in his career, but off the field he wasn't doing real well. There was a feeling he was going to be a bust the first couple of years. He just was not playing well. The Eagles, some people thought he reached because he was shorter. I know a team in the NFC North told me that arms were too short, gave him a much lower grade, gave him a 3rd-round grade because they didn't think he was big enough physically. And he made a physical and a off-the-field transformation like I've never seen. And obviously he's going to go to the Eagles Hall of Fame. He won't make the NFL Hall of Fame, but he's just and he's a great guy, obviously beloved by everyone. And you're right. Not that Andre's having issues off the field, but in terms of transformation and being great, you got it. It's on him, by the way. It's really not on coaching. It's really more up to him.
No, I agree with you on that. All right, we're going to move on. We got two things I want to talk about really quickly. One, we got a new coach to the Eagles offensive staff, yet another one, and then also a little bit of draft talk. But before we do that, I want to thank our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're doing an amazing job enhancing the fan experience, covering the Eagles, the Sixers, the Flyers, the Phillies. They got podcasts. I'm actually going to be a guest on their Birds Banter podcast coming up soon. So look forward to a little crossover action between Inside the Birds and PHL Sports Nation. Looking forward to that. So we thank them as always for their great partnership in this affiliation. And let's pause right now real quick to get a great word from our wonderful sponsors. Hey, it's Geoff Mosher. Adam Caplan and I love using Anchor for our Inside the Birds podcast every week. It's so user-friendly, anyone can create their own podcast, and you should too. Just download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Anchor gives you everything you need to start your own podcast from your phone or computer. Its creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast for a professional sound, and Anchor will distribute your podcast for you to Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and so many other platforms. It can be heard by everyone, just like Inside the Birds. You can also make money from your pod with no minimum listenership. What are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to create your podcast today. Hey, it's Geoff Mosher. Are you interested in money? Yep, I thought so. Well, on the Talk Money with Mesh Lakhani podcast, Mesh will follow paper trails, chat with experts, and break down complex ideas to bring clarity to the mystical financial phenomena and help listeners uncover the story behind their money. Each of these compelling stories will hit a broad range of subjects ranging from buying Bitcoin, dealing with student debt, and everything in between. So if you're interested in money, and I know you are, check out the Talk Money with Mesh Lakhani podcast on Anchor. All right, Adam, coaching, a new coach, a new old coach.
Another one.
Like the old Coke and the new Coke. Now the old Coke's the new Coke, but the new Coke's back to the old Coke. Marty Mornhinweg is back with the Eagles for the third time. I swear, whether it's him, whether it's Jordan Matthews or Julian Vandervelde, no franchise just brings guys back multiple times like the Eagles. I got to say, though, you got Scangarello here, you got Briner, you got Press Taylor, you got Marty Mornhinweg. How many more? Is it too much? I don't want to be nitpicky, but it just it seems like you're just adding guys to add guys now.
That was my first reaction when the Eagles announced this. I'm like, really? Like, what? I get that Doug and Marty are very good friends and they have the same agent, but why now? Do you really need him? He's going to be I believe that he's going to be an outside consultant. He's really not. He's not going to work. Consultants don't work out of the building. They'll go to the building. They'll visit from time to time. Mm-hmm. What it is it. Doug and Marty are brought up in the West Coast offense, so they know it cold down. This is the bastardized version of it. This is not your father's version of the West Coast offense. Andy Reid's West Coast offense at Kansas City clearly is not the West Coast offense that he learned from Lavelle Edwards at BYU, but
right.
It's more of a college offense. But what it is it's Marty's going to be he'll be another set of eyes on their offense, and he could go grade tape and, hey, you know what, I see this. You probably want to talk to this guy about this. We probably could do a better job because he knows the offense better than Scan does. Now, Scangarello he knows the West Coast offense because, he was with Kyle Shanahan. He clearly knows it, but he's going to bring in different ideas from his time at Wagner when he did a brilliant job as their OC and everywhere he's been in his career, which has been long, by the way, college and pro. Mm-hmm. So, look, if he was going to be what we call a senior offensive assistant, that would be more of a concern because that means the guy's going to be building all the time and he's going to be yet another voice who's there all the time.
Right.
That's what Rich Scangarello is going to do. So it was just a little bit eye-popping when I'm like, what the world? That, because we all have reaction when something happens that we weren't expecting. Like, okay, what does this mean?
I know. But it's very strange. It just makes you, are they going to bring in another guy?
Yeah.
I jokingly I reached out to somebody I know in the Eagles front office and I said, when does Brad Childress come back now?
Yeah, right. Well, we know it's funny. We made the running joke that every assistant has an assistant.
Yes.
I mean, it's correct. No, every position coach has an assistant.
Well, you got 2 tight ends and 2 tight ends coaches.
It's crazy. I know. I mean, well, now technically that they have 4 under contract. So
yeah, but how many are really going to make the team?
Exactly. We're going to play at the same time. So it is a little bit odd where the Patriots have the smallest coaching staff in the National Football League. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, who would have thunk that? And he's already on the website, by the way. He is the senior offensive consultant.
By the way, I've never heard of that term. Never.
Me too. And then it made me think about Andrew Briner, who they brought in as the passing game analyst. So my first thought was, well, what does the passing game analyst do differently from the offensive consultant?
Well, here's what it's actually
you're analyzing, and if you're analyzing, you're probably consulting.
Well, Briner's actually the way I was explaining it is he's going to bring in ideas from college,
right?
From grading tape from college teams.
Yeah,
where he brings in
working
concepts.
with Joe Moorhead, yeah.
Right, so that's actually very important. And this is what when Press Taylor was he was really not the quarterback when he was the assistant quarterbacks coach. I'm told he was actually the offensive quality control coach. That actually was his job because DeFilippo was the quarterbacks coach. John ran the room, so Press Taylor was really the guy who would do what he was the guy who found Philly special. Mm-hmm. Because when Doug said, "Hey, go find some stuff we want to add," and he found that, and now Press has so many jobs here. He just has He has a lot more responsibility, and he's going to have help, and he's going to have the support staff. Because I'll be honest with you, when they first named him, gave him this new title a couple months ago, I was like, man, this is a lot for him. He better have a good support staff, and I'll give Peterson credit, and Roseman obviously helped with it. There'll never be a question about getting support. They've got a lot.
Well, it almost makes you think, Adam, if this team doesn't have a top 5 or top 10 offense, then what was the point of all this? Because they've assembled a pretty impressive collection of coaches with various resumes and lots of diversity in what they've done. So hopefully this, if they were terrible this coming year, you think, well, what are all these guys doing?
Well, look,
it's strange.
Internally, they wanted more creativity. I don't care what they say. This is exactly what they wanted. They wanted more creativity. Fair or not, this is what was coming out of NovaCare, and they're going to have it. And if they don't have it, somebody's ass is going to be on the line because this is what everybody wants upstairs. Mm-hmm. They want to see pre-snap, post-snap. They also want to see, by the way, more creativity on defense. That's why they made a change with the defensive line coach. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see. Look, you make all this change, folks. Now it's on the head coach. And I've said it for several months. Doug Peterson needs to do a better job of coaching his coaches. He better make sure they implement this stuff and that when he grades the tape that they're doing what he wants. If not,
Now we got an army of them.
Right. You better do it. You need to coach your coaches better.
All right. NFL draft. It's kind of widely assumed just by looking at mock drafts. So that doesn't mean anything's set in stone, but it seems as if the Judy, Ruggs, and CeeDee Lamb are all going to be gone by, say 16, 17, or 18. So a lot of mock drafts now have the Eagles staying at 21 and taking Justin Jefferson. That's the most common name lately I've seen, the LSU wide receiver. Now, it just so happens that you and I hit up the same guy for an opinion because we just ran into him at different times. You always talk to Greg Cassell. I ran into him at the Maxwell Awards. I asked him about Justin Jefferson.
Go ahead.
And he said, yeah, I just talked to Adam about Justin Jefferson. And his take, and of course, we nobody grinds tape more than Craig Cassell. He thinks he's a very good wide receiver, but in the NFL, he's going to be a slot wide receiver. And while the Eagles have seemingly drafted a lot of those lately, whether it's Jordan Matthews or Nelson Aguilar, we know that they're looking for a outside wide receiver.
Okay.
So do you change your opinion or
no? Because I don't. Greg and I exchanged some notes on KJ Hamler and Jefferson. Here's what Geoff told me on my show on Sirius with John Hansen last Friday. He said, look, Jefferson, and I agree because he ran a really good 40 time. He doesn't play to that speed.
Right, that's what I heard too.
Yeah, teams, I asked Greg, I said, is he an X or a Z? He said he's a movement Z. You got to move him. You got to put him in motion. He said if he doesn't play slot, he's a movement Z. Mm-hmm. A movement Z is a number 2 NFL receiver. That's what he is. He's not an X receiver.
Right.
You don't typically draft Z receivers in the first round. You draft X receivers because that's your true number 1 receiver.
Correct.
Because Jefferson is not a burner. He's smooth though. This is what the scouting report I got says. He is smooth with the ball in his hands, accelerates, very good hands, transitions very well. You can line him up inside or outside. Now, this plays to what Greg was saying. He thinks that because he's not a burner and is not as fast as his 40 time would indicate, which I agree with, he may have to play inside. We're going to see, but the earliest Jefferson should go would be the early 20s to the Eagles. Mm-hmm. But here's the problem, Geoff. If you draft Jefferson in the first round, you still don't have that burner. He's not a burner, folks.
What if you were able to sign Brashad Perriman in free agency? Would you feel more comfortable about then drafting Justin Jefferson?
They've not. You and I run the team. We're doing it. Speed changes. Speed is a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
You sold it, and I know Deshaun Jackson barely played. Did you see Week 1 against Washington? It was unbelievable. What do you have? 2 50-yard touchdowns?
Yeah,
unbelievable. I mean, this is.
So if they're looking for, I don't want to exclude a good wide receiver like a Justin Jefferson, maybe even a Denzel Mims, who's raw, but is some scouts feel will be by the end of this career the best receiver in the draft. I don't want to pass on really good talent just because they don't run a 4.3 40. If they're good players and they can get open, then they're good players. So that's why, I think that's where free agency comes in. If you can address that speed, even if it's not Rashad, there's got to be somebody with some decent speed out. Taylor Gabriel, I don't know. If you guys who can stretch the field, then that allows you to then just draft really good the best players on the board without worrying if they fill a certain one check on the box that they check every other box, but just not this one. But they're still a really good player.
Right. And I don't disagree. You're absolutely right. In scouting, you always want to take the best player.
Mm-hmm.
But this offense will never be as explosive as it needs to be until they get someone who could at least draw. Someone you have to be concerned about. Torrey Smith, the Super Bowl run, who was clearly near the end of his career. He still could run, and you would see on tape the safeties were back there. They were concerned about it. That's what speed does.
Yeah, I have a lot of curiosity about KJ Hamler and Jalen Reagor. Hamler has the speed that we're talking about. It's just elite. He didn't run the 40 at the combine. He'll do it at his pro day coming up. I'm sure it'll be fast. But Adam, the biggest thing you get from guys in the league is that at 5'8", they wonder if he can get off press coverage on the outside. But even if he does, you need a quarterback with tremendous downfield accuracy to hit him in stride because he's not going to be a guy who goes up and get it. Now, you brought up the season opener. He hit Deshaun Jackson, Carson Wentz twice, big, long touchdowns. But we've also seen Carson be erratic on his downfield accuracy in the past. So I don't know if Hamler in the first round is a perfect marriage for the Eagles also.
It doesn't matter. You need speed. You can't worry about because Carson is not a great downfield thrower. By the way, the longer you throw, the less your accuracy is going to be. You need someone who can run. This I'm just telling you, this offense will never be what it could be.
So you would take Hamler in the first round, 21 overall.
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, you got to tell me who's on the board.
Mm-hmm. Those guys. We're talking those guys. It's Jefferson. It's Hamler. It's Jalen Reagor.
Reagor, by the way, is going to work out his pro day. He's going to run his pro day. He needs to drop a little bit of weight or a little size.
Right.
That's what I'm
Every
told.
Every other test he seemed good in. It was just the 40 because he was a little heavy.
Exactly. My sense is that I hate to say this because I hate this term, but Justin Jefferson is a little bit more of a sure thing because he's much bigger physically. He's 6'1" and a quarter.
Right.
He's 202. His official time is I'm told is 4.43. He plays, and I'm told, to a 4.48 to a 4.52.
Yeah, which is not slow, by the way. He's not 150 pounds. He's a bigger guy.
But it's decent, not great speed.
Yeah,
we're really cutting hairs here.
I think Keenan Allen is a guy I heard a lot of comparisons to, and that's a good.
Oh,
NFL
he's a great player. But the funny thing about that's a good one. Keenan Allen, the funny thing is he didn't run. He didn't run for, if you remember, he didn't run at the combine. And I don't even know if he ran at his pro day. I forget what the circumstances were where people were really, and that's probably why he dropped a little bit.
Same thing with Mike Williams, right? The Chargers must love guys who don't run at their at the combine.
Well, he's a go and get it receiver, right? He's a big guy. They probably should have drafted another receiver. But, Hamler, it was 5'8" and 5'8". He was only 178. He's not going to grow, folks. He's not going to be 5'10". He's under 5'9". But he's got electrifying speed on tape.
Right.
But he's a vertical slot. He just doesn't – he's just so small. You got to figure out where you're going to line him up. So to answer your question –
I trust Doug in that regard to make it work.
I do, because he's great at that. Right.
Yeah.
Finding a way. But because there are only two speed guys, I'm going to take Hamler.
All right.
That's – I'm a big Hamler guy because I know how explosive he is. I hate to pass up on Justin Jefferson because I know that I've got guys telling me DeAndre Hopkins is obviously a superstar, but he's the type of player that he's going to make every catch, contested catch. Good kid. We'll go after it. You know what you're getting from him. Where Hamler, you got to take a little bit of leap of faith because he's very small. But, man, dude, he can fly.
Yeah, by the way, this is a really good dilemma for the Eagles to have because at the end of the day, I think these both guys are going to be very productive in the NFL, both Hamler and Jefferson. And to be honest with you, I want to do a little more homework, but I think Rager's got a shot to be pretty good. And he's kind of being talked about as the third wheel here, but let's see how he does when he runs his 40 at TCU.
Yes, and Mims, by the way, he's just under 6'3".
Yeah.
He measured 6'2", 7 1/8.
Right.
He shocked everybody by running a 4.38 official time. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation. You have to make a decision if you're an NFL team with this kid.
Mm-hmm.
Do these numbers transfer? Because if they do, he's going to be a top 25 pick.
Totally agree. Can't wait to see how it shakes out.
I do.
All right. I think we've given great information on Andre Dillard, on Jason Peters, on the Mornhinweg edition here on the first round of the draft. And, of course, we'll be doing it again in a couple of days. Want to thank all of our partners that we do this with, 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you're downloading the free mobile app. And if people don't know now, at least for the month of March, I'll be moving to the 12 to 2 slot, replacing Harry Mays. So I'll be on with Eitan Shander from 12 to 2 for the entire month of March and perhaps even longer than that. So please make sure you've downloaded the free mobile app and you're tuning in. And, of course, we thank Hunter Brody, our executive producer of Inside the Birds. And you can catch his work at Sports Talk with Broads on his YouTube page, Sports Talk with Broads. Also, Hunter has been writing for 97.3ESPN.com, doing a lot of Sixers coverage there. So if you like reading about the Sixers and you love Hunter's work, which you should, make sure you head over to 97.3 ESPN after Sixers games and check out his writing. He's at the games. He's doing interviews. He's on his way up to being a fantastic reporter as well as a personality. So make sure you give Hunter Brody a follow on all the social media platforms. And make sure, again, please, you're InsideTheBirds.com. Become a subscriber. Let us know if you love the website. Let us know if you want more. Oh, and by the way, Adam, I should mention that we're going to be doing a mailbag this week. We're going to answer some of the Ask ITB questions in a mailbag for InsideTheBirds.com this week. So I know you'll be writing one. I'll probably write one because we have a lot of questions to get to. So we thank everybody for their submissions, and we look forward to answering their questions. And as always, we thank you for flying with us Inside the Birds.
If you're listening to this, you obviously like podcasts, and you probably like music too. On Spotify, you can listen to all of that in one place for free. That's right, you don't need a premium account. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcast so you never miss an episode. You can download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are. You can easily share what you're listening to with your friends via Spotify's integrations with social media platforms like Instagram. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now. Just search for Inside the Birds on the Spotify app or browse podcasts in the Your Library tab. And follow me, Geoff Mosher, so you never miss an episode of Inside the Birds. Spotify is the world's leading music streaming service, and now it can be your go-to for podcasts too.